Welcome to Rock DIY, or Do It You. If you do it, then it's all you. One of several black walnut stumps that we have on our property still. Here's another black walnut stump on our property. And another one. And then the largest one. And then there's two more. This one has a whole bunch of surface roots. And then one more over here. These will all eventually be removed. This dirt area right here is where a black walnut stump was recently removed. This is one of the roots that was cut out. And then over here is part of the actual stump. Stump was a lot bigger than this. This is just a piece of it. We had a total of 16 black walnut trees and some other trees as well in our yard. We learned that a toxin called juglone is released from the black walnut root into the ground and prevents other plants and trees from growing near them. So we couldn't really plant a garden. It was out of the question. Not only that, the black walnuts will destroy lawnmower blades very quickly, but most importantly, our dog got very sick from chewing on black walnut shells and branches that fell from the trees. So all the black walnut trees had to go. I started by cutting down 6 of them. It was pretty time consuming. I didn't do the next one until I completely cut each tree into logs, stacked the logs, cut all the branches up, and then mulched the branches and fixed the lawn. I got close to cutting one down next to the house, and my wife gave me a look from inside the house that told me to call a tree service, and I did. The guy came and did an estimate. Originally I said, how much will it cost to just cut down this one tree, the one closest to the house, with no cleanup and no haul? He said $150. I expected it to be more, not that I wanted it to be more. I then asked how much to cut all 16 trees down, no cleanup or haul. He said $2,500. I almost had a heart attack and regretted asking. I told him never mind. I asked him to just cut down the one tree for $150. He said he would be back the next day. When he came back, he asked if I wanted all 16 trees cut down. I said no, it would cost too much. He said, I'll cut all 16 for $150, but I keep all the trees over 10 inches of diameter. I had to ask again to make sure I heard him right. What he didn't know is that I did my research and discovered that people will pay top dollar for black walnut. I only paid $150, but I'm pretty sure I lost some potential income from the black walnut, but I don't have the connections needed. However, I did get to use their excavator for 2 days at no charge. All in all, the trees were down and the heaviest work was gone. Now, the not so fun part after all the cleanup was done, removing the stump. This was learning in the process. I didn't have an excavator or stump grinder, so I had to use the tools I have: a chainsaw, pry bars, reciprocating saw, 35-pound pry bar, a drill, pressure washer, chains, hydraulic jack, shovel, pickaxe, and a hoe. The entire backyard has a 19-degree slope where all the black walnut stumps are. Using just the tools that I just mentioned, the first stump took me over 2 weeks to complete. It was a pretty large stump. I started with the shovel, pick, and hoe to remove dirt from around the stump, then realized I needed to move dirt further away in order to work on the stump. I quickly realized the ground was full of rocks. The tools were no match for the rocks and roots. I decided to use a pressure washer to help separate the rocks and dirt, but it was very messy. Also, the dirt I needed to use to fill the stump hole was all washing down the hill, so I had to use settling pools below the stump to allow the water to seep out and the dirt to stay. I eventually got some roots exposed. I got the chainsaw out and started cutting roots. This is where I learned a lesson about chainsaw chains and rocks and dirt. Dirt and rocks around a root is bad business for a chainsaw. Chains were dull very quickly. This taught me to ensure where I was cutting the root had no dirt at all around it. The underside of the root has to be dug out. Besides the pressure washer making a big wet mess, it also created issues for the chainsaw, especially with any incomplete cuts. I always made sure I pressure washed the roots off before cutting with the chainsaw, but unfortunately small rocks and dirt were settling in the cut, so the chain would dull quickly. At this point, the pressure washer was out. My next lesson was on how to cut roots properly or more effectively. I initially started with cutting roots with one cut close to the stump and worked my way around. This wasn't very efficient, left little room to work, and made it impossible to get the stump out. Using the lessons learned, I started on my next stump. This stump took me less than 2 days to complete. I dug from the stump out 2.5 to 3 feet all the way around. Then I used the 35-pound pry bar to break up the dirt and rocks around the roots. I used my hands and a hand trowel to scoop out dirt and rocks. Once I had a root cleaned all the way around at the 2.5 or 3 foot point, I would cut it with the chainsaw, then clear around the root next to the stump, then cut another 2 to 3 feet away from that cut to create a gap in order to work more efficiently. Don't cut too close to the stump unless you want to do a lot more cutting with the chainsaw. A big caution here, cutting close to the stump is where you will find rocks intertwined with the roots, and normally at the bottom of the root cut. You may have to stop your cut and use a pry bar. The heavier and longer the better. Place the pry bar in the cut to one side and use leverage to cause it to turn away to the side as you lift or push, or place the pry bar under the root and push it, causing it to roll and twist to the side. Lifting it straight up will not work. Once you get one root done, just work your way around using the same procedure. You will find it gets easier as you work your way around the stump. Unfortunately, these are only the roots that spread out laterally underground. Now you have to cut the taproot, or the root that goes straight down. In my case, my yard is on a slope, so I dug a cutout on the downhill side that would allow me room to get to the taproot. You want room that will allow you to cut the root diagonally. As long as you clear out around the taproot, you don't have to worry about rocks or dirt in the taproot. Cutting straight across requires more room and offers less leverage. Also, you will have to use wedges to prevent the weight of the stump from seizing the chain on the chainsaw. Once the stump is out, it will be easier to remove the rest of the stump with 1 or 2 cuts of the chainsaw. You won't be able to get the entire stump out, but it will be below ground. Here are some other good things to know about black walnut trees, roots, stumps. Black walnut roots spread out laterally just under the surface of the ground. There is one taproot that goes straight down. The roots tend to go around the stump along the same line. They aren't typically staggered at different heights. Once you get past the lateral roots, it is clear where the taproot begins. Newly cut black walnut trees or roots seep quite a bit and do attract bugs. Black walnut is a good firewood, medium density, and burns easily. It is a clean burning hardwood. Pruning blades on a reciprocating saw will not last long cutting the roots. If you decide to use this method, if you don't know how to sharpen a chainsaw chain, learn, or be prepared to buy a lot of chains. Keep your chainsaw clean, oiled, sharpened, and fueled. Take care of it, and it'll take care of you. A dull chain produces smoke. Stop trying to cut once you start seeing a bunch of smoke. Don't attempt to remove a black walnut stump with an axe. I've actually seen people do it, but it will take forever and may not work. It's just not worth it. If you don't want to do the work or you don't have the tools, there are other methods for tree stump removal. You can hire a tree service, which can be pretty expensive. You can rent a stump grinder and do it yourself, or you can just have them completely pulled out. But of course, that would require a tree service or having a tractor that's capable of pulling them out. There are also chemical methods like sulfate, bromide, or potassium nitrate, but these take time and require a lot of patience, so if you want your stump gone right away, it's not going to happen with chemicals. Another method is to burn the stump, but if it's a newly cut tree, it's not going to burn very well. If it's a rotted old stump, it'll probably burn a whole lot better. But you do have to make sure that whatever you want burned of the stump, you have to fully expose it and make sure there's not a lot of dirt packed around it, because the dirt will prevent the stump and roots from burning. This is one of the very first stumps I attempted to remove. I did use a spade bit and potassium nitrate, bored a bunch of holes in it and used the potassium nitrate over several months, and it didn't seem to do anything to the stump at all. This is not a black walnut tree. I believe it's a locust tree. It was probably, well, it was cut down well before we moved in, so it's been cut down for at least 2 years. Ultimately, this stump was dug up and removed, and the good thing is, even though potassium nitrate was used initially, and from digging it up, it didn't kill the tree that is right next to it. The stump's been out of the ground for about 6 months, and the tree next to it is still doing well. This is one of the very first black walnut stumps that I attempted to remove that took about 2 weeks to get out of the ground. This is when I attempted to use a pressure washer to loosen up the dirt and rocks, because using hand tools, shovel, hoe, pick, pry bar, there was just so many rocks that it was impossible to get anything out. So I used the pressure washer, and you can see above to the left is where I made a settling pond, because using the pressure washer and being on a slope, it was causing all the dirt to wash down to the bottom of the yard. By the time I got to this stump, I was able to take some lessons learned and apply them to removing this stump, such as digging out and away, exposing all the roots so that I can get them properly cut to give room to work on the stump, and then also putting the dirt uphill versus downhill. Having the dirt uphill makes it easier to fill the hole back up, because you can push and pull a lot of the dirt into the hole. Where the red arrows are is about 2.5 to 3 feet. And by cutting in these two places, I was able to make room in order to work to continue to remove dirt. It's hard to see in the next picture, but this is where the red diagonal line is where the stump was cut from the taproot. Thanks for watching the video. I truly appreciate it. Please like, comment, or subscribe. Thanks again.